Yeah, no, I was not. I was getting ready for
Hello,
bed. That's why
everybody.
I
Jake,
goaded
Resident
you.
Content Cowboy here. Yeehaw! And we have some patch notes,
That's why I baited
or do we,
you.
for what is coming to
So I have an
Pokemon Unite.
excuse to go
So
to bed now.
first of all, I will say that there are
Get
some real
scapegoated.
things that have been leaked that we know are coming to Unite, and I just see these patch notes getting shared around everywhere. The question is, are these real patch notes? Are these actually coming to the game? Are they a best guess, or are they just a wish list of what might come to Unite? Come along with me. I'm going to show you something very real that is confirmed coming to Unite really quickly that is pretty amazing, and then we're going to talk about these
You're the villain
supposed patch
now,
notes that are floating around the
Batman.
ether. First, I really quickly want to talk about this very real post from Pokemon.com that talks about the Halloween event for Pokemon Unite. You
Ooh.
can see that they talk about Mimikyu coming to join the fray on October 19th, so we know the exact date. In addition, Pokemon Unite's next Battle Pass from October 24th to December 4th will be for Phantom Thief style Inteleon, which I have to say, as someone who
Gross.
absolutely loves Inteleon right now, that sounds so incredibly cool, and I am very excited for that HoloWare because holy, I mean, look, they could have put him in a suit, they could have given us James Pond, but they didn't. Now let's talk about these patch notes, and you may have seen these. I'm not sure exactly what it was that got me to go,
Alright, what do we have here? Blizzard stun decreased, I assume. Thank goodness. Cooldown increased. Thank goodness. They're just reverting the buff. Thank goodness. Avalanche cooldown increased. Thank goodness. They're not just one of the most boring characters in the game now for no good reason. Inteleon liquidation decreased. Yeah, no shit. Acrobatics cooldown increased. Thank goodness. Cooldown increased. That's good. They really can do all of this just too much, considering how many boosteds it gives them and how much damage they do. They don't want to decrease the damage. I guess that's fine. Well, I mean, they're slightly decreasing the damage, but, I mean, the boosteds are half the damage, so... Serena, HP increased, defense increased, special defense increased. You know, I don't mind that. That's fine. I'm into that. Those are good buffs. I feel like those are not dangerous buffs that could actually cause problems. Mime confusion. Have you learned nothing? Have you learned nothing? Fools. All of them. Swear to God. Ugh. Absol's getting a buff. Pursuit damage increased. That's rough. But, you know, I compare it to Leafeon, and I guess it's fine at this point. Like, sure. Yeah, yeah. If I had to pick something to change on the Unite move, it would definitely be the cooldown. I definitely wouldn't want anything else changed on it, really.
about
Well, tackle, you can change where you jump after the move ends. That would be a really nice quality of life change. It wouldn't really change the move that much, because you are usually so far back that you are, you know, going to jump in the correct direction when you're done. But being able to use it to escape, that's pretty cool. It'll
these
not
patch
be
notes
super
right
useful, but
away.
it's
And it's
something.
not that a lot of it couldn't be true or that a lot of it's not possible. There are just some things about it that made me go, I think these are more wish fulfillment than they are real patch notes. Let's go through it here. First off, Alolan Ninetales, Blizzard, effects on the opposing Pokemon decreased, Blizzard cooldown increased, and Avalanche cooldown increased. These are possible changes for Alolan Ninetales, but I would say they'd be very odd. Alolan Ninetales is extremely good inside the game right now, one of the better attackers, especially sort of in that longer range mage role. I just don't see a reason to mess with this Pokemon too hard. It's not as if Alolan Ninetales is breaking the game too incredibly much, even though it is a very, very strong Pokemon. It's weird to sort of immediately revert some buffs that we saw for this Pokemon previously. So I don't know if we'd see that from Alolan Ninetales. I think more likely we'd see them do something with Dazzling Gleam and Aurora Veil. It would be weird to take this Pokemon back down to a much more useless state.
I
Let's talk
disagree.
about Inteleon right here. Liquidation, damage dealt to opposing Pokemon decreased. Fair.
I disagree because it's one of the
Acrobatics,
most
cooldown
boring
increased.
Pokemon that's
Maybe.
just
And
free.
Fell Stinger,
It's just
cooldown
good because
increased.
it's
So again,
free.
we're going right back to reverting the Fell Stinger change, and now we're increasing the cooldown of Acrobatics, all while we have, as I just showed you, an Inteleon Battle Pass coming up. Not impossible. Inteleon's very good. Liquidation does do too much damage, especially at the high end. Like, they could set it up where Liquidation kind of made some sense early, and then later it sort of like had its power level trail off a bit. All of those are reasonable changes for Inteleon. Odd to see when you do have a battle pass coming up for a Pokemon, they usually don't have nerfs like that. Is it possible? Of course. Is it likely? I don't know. Especially acrobatics and Fell Stinger. Like, I kind of get liquidation. That feels like the most devastating part of that Pokemon.
Both Mime and Inteleon seem pretty strange here from a business perspective.
The following stats have been increased: HP, defense, special defense. All possible. All possible. But doesn't a lot of this already feel like, and I'm not saying they couldn't be real patch notes because this is how things work, but doesn't this already feel like a lot of wish fulfillment? Like,
yeah, it's also strange because you would expect now that the free has run out for Mewtwo, mostly, you would expect this patch to be nerfing Mewtwo Y, to be nerfing Mewtwo X again, probably touching Zacian, because now we're going to be looking into like the World's patch notes. Right, and like from Worlds, we saw Hoopa broken, Zacian broken, Mewtwo broken, obviously. We saw Lapras broken, we saw Umbreon broken, we saw Leafeon broken. And it would be very strange if they didn't touch... That's 6 characters that are in like S tier or above. And it'd be very strange for them to not touch a single one of them after the, like... Worlds ended, where like they are very aware, and the world is very aware of how broken these characters are and how often they're getting picked.
Just things that you think they should do in the game. We have Mr. Mime. Confusion. Damage dealt to opposing Pokemon.
Outside of like Oblivion rocking the
because
Venusaur.
They are testing confusion buffs on the PTS.
Like,
they're also testing some Sableye buffs on the PTS. Now we have a little more
no Sableye stuff here either.
Real or just the person who created these patch notes is aware that this is something that's happening. So that's been added in right there. Are we getting a Mr. Mime buff to Confusion? We absolutely could. Mr. Mime's pretty weak right now, but who knows? Absol. Pursuit. Damage dealt to opposing Pokemon increased. Unite move cooldown decreased. Fair buffs. It probably needs more than this, even though...
But like where?
It needs something. I don't know how much.
Yeah, sure, it needs buffs. Where? Where are you going to put buffs on Absol without making it just a one-shot machine? Like a one-shot machine with no punishments and like no reaction, right? Like a buffed Absol would be worse than Leafeon. We saw that happen, right? Like Night Slash doing a lot of damage means that you can go in, kill them, get out immediately, and just wait for your next setup. Perfectly safe, no punish, right? And you could do it pretty much before anybody can react to it, especially on ping and especially on lag. So like you can't buff that. Pursuit, right? It like being able to one-shot an enemy in a single hit is completely defeats the point of like you being able to counter it. Even this damage increase is already kind of dangerous. But if anything, it really should just be that what Absol really kind of needs is, instead of super crit increasing crit chance, it really needs to be like when he crits, he goes through defenses a little bit, right? So like he cuts through shield and he goes through defenses a bit, because like it's tank meta, and Absol can do, speedsters in general can't do anything against tanks, right? Like a Lapras, you try and murder a Lapras and you'll die for it. You try and murder an Umbreon, you'll die for it. You try and murder a Slowbro, you'll definitely die for it. Alright, if you try and 1v1 a Goodra, that's not gonna end well. You can burn all of your resources and Goodra will Dragon Pulse once and be fine. Like, you can't 1v1 them. That's specifically their counter. But the problem is the meta has made defenders so broken that speedsters by default are just terrible. And only the ones that are exceptionally good can sort of peek their head above that. And the longer the meta goes on, the better defenders get at being defenders, and even lower and lower the speedsters go. At this point, Zoroark is only like A tier, and Dodrio is like A or B. And it's like, yeah, you can use them, you can do well with them, you can absolutely destroy Mewtwo's and Delphoxes and Gardevoirs and Inteleons and whatever might be causing problems, but if you don't have ult, you're fucked. And speedsters only being useful with ult is such a small portion of the game. You'd be better off picking almost any other Pokemon, and that's the problem.
much the damage increase to Pursuit would be. It definitely needs something, and this is a reasonable buff for this.
The only reason Leafeon's as high as it is because its ult is so low cooldown.
So you can input a
If
direction
it didn't
to
have that
jump
ult
after
on
the
that low
move-ins.
cooldown, it
I
would
don't
be
know
terrible.
why, but this is the patch note that made me go, absolutely not, they're not doing this.
Like, it would be basically just a Zoroark, but with less damage.
Not a good idea. The reason is, everybody, I'm coming in closer to tell you this. It makes too much sense. It's just what we've talked about. We've wanted this for so it makes sense for this move. And for that reason, I don't think
it's probably fake.
I don't think they're doing it. It's just something that, as a community, we talk about.
And even beyond it making that much sense, MIBE is not a good buff. That's not a good buff for the company as a whole, and also for the game. Right? Like, last time that happened, chaos ensued. The same thing goes for Absol. Like, Absol buffs would be nice, but Talent exists, Gengar exists, Absol is around, right? They're, like... Buffing Absol in particular is what got them into a sticky situation last time they buffed him. For no good reason. I don't think they're in a position to be making that same exact mistake again. And same thing goes for, like, the Mime buff. Last time they buffed Mime, it became the most unholy of unbeatable strats to just put him in a lane, and he just wins that lane. And the only reason it would even be counterable now is because Umbreon would be, and Lapras would be just as impossible to deal with. Except Mime ult has even more stun, so if he does damage, it's even worse.
So I think because of that,
like, buffed Mime would be even worse than Umbreon and Lapras are now.
That one made me immediately go,
and that's why it's dangerous to put these buffs, and that's why it was a bad idea last time.
But these are fake. There's more. Right here we have Leafeon changes.
Alright, but wait, there's more. Cooldown increased. That's not going to happen. This is a fake patch. They would never increase the cooldown of an Eevee's ult. They're probably considering decreasing Sylveon's ult just to put it in line with the rest of the Eevees and to buff it in a way that actually can help it. It doesn't super help Hyper Voice, but Hyper Voice is also really good anyway. But it's just really good into, you know, like, actual team comps instead of, you know, like, being really good into solo queue. And it would really help Mystical Fire, which is the one that is for solo queue. So why not? Damage dealt to opposing Pokemon decreased. I mean, that is a very them change where it's just like, I don't think the damage on ult was really a problem. Oh, this is Leafeon. I was thinking Sylveon again. Never mind. I could see them nerfing the damage. I could see that happening. But it's also a very reasonable change, and they don't do reasonable changes very often. This is a lot of reasonable changes, with some stupid one thrown in for flavor. Solar Blade damage decreased. Yeah. I feel like they would want to do something more interesting. Solar Blade is a very interesting move that I feel like would need a bit more care done to it. You know, like, just lowering damage is kind of eh. Mega Mewtwo-X. Okay, so here's the patch notes that would make sense from the criticisms I had earlier. Stats decreased attack and attack speed. I highly doubt it. They really, really do not like messing with stats unless they are very broken. Like, we're talking like Scizor broken. Like, that's the last time that they messed with stats in any meaningful way. Like, just for reference, they never nerfed Zacian's stats. He still has the highest stat in almost every category. Except for Blissey, who gets slightly more max health. He has the health of a defender, the defenses and special defenses of a defender, the attack of an attacker, the speed of a speedster. Like, what? And they never did anything about that. They continued with their ideology of, yes, legendaries have higher stat pools. That's how Pokemon works. And they just let that happen, and it's still the way it is. And honestly, if they got rid of that, Zacian could probably actually be buffed to be an interesting character. Unfortunately, no. Recover effects on the user weakened. Now, that's a nerf that actually does make sense. Like, he legit does get too much shield from Recover. And it also heals too much because he gets too much shield. Special attack and attack speed and HP. Like this is too good of a nerf. They would never do this. Mewtwo is way too good of a character, even more beloved than Zacian, who everyone hates. Except for like the professional. No, even they hate it. I was gonna say even the professional Pokemon tournament players. No, they hate it too. Everyone hates Zacian. So like, there's no way in heck that they would take Mewtwo, who is an infinitely beloved like legendary, and perfectly nerf it the way we want it to. There's no way in hell. This is super fake. There's no fucking way. I'll believe it when I see it. Recover, cooldown increased. That's a very reasonable change. Like, you're noticing a pattern with how I respond to a lot of these changes. Effects on the user weakened. Would that be reducing the amount it gives you? I guess. I could see it giving you like a 1/12 of your bar instead of a 1/6. Maybe. Or no, it's 6 basic attacks. But I think that's roughly how much recover gives. It's like 1 basic attack. I could be wrong though. Lapras ults, Gudra ults. Like, there's no fucking way. They've spent the last 3 patches buffing Dragon Pulse to where it is. There's no way in hell they would specifically do the exact opposite of the last buff and put it right where they didn't want it to be. There's no way in hell. Unite move cooldown increased, which is exactly what we want. Damage dealt decreased, exactly what we want. I would really like it to have less stun when you crash into something. It really should have like almost none. Ice beam damage dealt decreased? What the fuck kind of nerf is that?
World 2-step.
Right as rain cooldown increased. Again, that's literally the exact of the last buff reversed. This looks like a placeholder buff that they haven't finished. This is the exact last buff that Gudra just got. They wouldn't just immediately revert it. They have almost never reverted a buff, with the exception of like Sylveon on release and Absol being buffed, which were emergency nerfs. Right? They would never take a character that is mid-tier and reverse a buff that they just gave it. Especially when Lapras and Umbreon are running rampant as better defenders. Heck, even Slowbro's better. Like, that doesn't make any sense. Either from wish fulfillment, this is bias, or from the perspective of, like, balancing the game. Like, from the perspective of what the devs have been doing, they wouldn't take a Pokemon and just reverse its buff specifically. Chandelure, Unite move, cooldown, decreased. The fuck? Of all the things Chandelure needs, it is not an ult buff.
That's the Unite move cooldown increased? Maybe.
Random.
Damage dealt to opposing Pokemon decreased.
This very much reads like a single person's opinion of what the game should be balanced with.
And then Solar Blade, damage dealt to opposing Pokemon decreased. I don't know.
Because,
really?
like, this is random.
Release.
This is, this is random. This goes against what the company does and wants and makes money with. This goes against what the company does and makes money with. Because, like, the nerfs are just too sensible. It's like, yeah, I think they'll nerf it. I don't think they'll nerf it like this. They never nerf things like this. Ever. That does not happen. This is random. This isn't how they do this, and it goes against what they do. This isn't how they do this, and it goes against what they do. This goes against what they do. This is targeted like hell. Like, this is specifically just reversing the last buff they got. This reads like somebody who's been playing the game a lot, and they miss when Gudra was the last buff. They feel like, oh, this last buff that they gave him, that was too much. I don't like it. I don't like this buff in particular, and they want to go back. That's what this reads as. It's very strange. It's like Unite doesn't. They don't just undo buffs that they did before. They will undo part of it to try and get back to where they wanted it to be. Right? Like, they would either do one or the other, and even then, they would probably do neither and just have Dragon Pulse do less damage. Right? But the effects on the user are the same. So it still heals a bunch, but it doesn't heal as much. But just because you do less damage. And also, they're a defender that does less damage now. That's a change that would make sense, and it doesn't just contradict the buff they just gave it. Or like the Unite move, Right as Rain, they would probably just have it last longer, or less. They would probably have it last less time. And so it still heals you a ton, but like it doesn't last as long, so you heal less overall, right? Like it doesn't make sense for them to make a change like this.
It's not that broken. It's just weird when you have certain things in the game that are so incredibly broken.
It's kind of broken. Are we talking about Leafeon?
But you want to balance Leafeon? Like, I get it.
It's kind of broken. It's not in the position of like, oh, this needs to be changed immediately, because we need to focus on the things that are really broken. Does Leafeon need a nerf? Yes. To where? We would need the meta to evolve, because the meta that would shift from actually nerfing the top tiers is actually a huge shift. So everything else that would trickle down that needs nerfs and buffs is kind of hard to do. That's the problem with releasing a broken character that you don't nerf quickly, is that now balancing the rest of the game becomes a nightmare.
It is strong, but
that's why we kind of need more emergency buffs and nerfs.
Some of this just doesn't work in my brain.
Which they did do with Mewtwo.
The following stats have been decreased attack. The following stats have been decreased attack speed. So
they did it,
Mega
but
Mewtwo X
how
doesn't
much?
Really have an attack speed issue, it doesn't seem like, but they could have lowered it and then recover
I guess.
effects on the user.
Like, Mewtwo X really doesn't attack that fast outside of Mega. Outside of Mega, it actually attacks really slowly, which makes sense. And when it gets the Mega, it gets a huge, huge attack speed increase. Like, could this be alright? I guess. But if it's nerfing, like, the attack speed out of the Mega... Like, that's weird and doesn't really solve the problem, because when he goes Mega, he's still going to be ridiculous. And that's kind of the problem. Like, if anything, the problems are with, like, Future Sight and Psystrike. Recover and Teleport. Teleport going so unbelievably far with, you know, like, a relatively short cooldown for how big of a dash it is like, rough. Recover healing so much and giving so much shield is ridiculous. It's like, if anything, it should be that, you know, like, the recover we have now maybe is when you're Mega'd, but when you're not Mega'd, it does, like, nothing. It gives you, like, maybe 800 shield or something. I guess it's a legendary, maybe a thou, maybe. Probably not. But then when you're Mega, it still gives you, like, 1,000, maybe, like, 1,200.
Weakened. They've nerfed a lot of Mewtwo X's kit. I actually would be surprised if we don't see some sort of nerf to its Unite move at some point.
I could see that. I really wish its Unite move didn't stun. That's my big thing. I really think that cheapens the move as a whole. Like, it being a long-range stun really sucks. It really should just be damage. It should be damage and info, and that's what it is. Like, if anything, if you get rid of the stun, I would probably argue you could increase the damage on it. And that would still be a nerf. Also, I think it should take longer to activate. Just saying. I'm just saying. I think it would be cooler if it was harder to get out of. But it did a ton of damage. So when you're all in like a little clustered group like that, or when you're all clustered around an objective, stealing it. Or, you know, like, you're taking a ton of damage, and then I'm megaing, and then I'm getting it. Like, that would be really cool. Also, like, if the ult gave you a little bit of mega gauge, like, maybe, like, 1, just for using it, like, 1 basic attack's worth, That would be really cool. Like you could use recover and be prepared for a team fight. Team fight starts, you ult, you mega instantly. That would be really cool. Also, it would be inefficient. You should basic attack once and then ult and then, like do a ton of damage, but that's not the point. Clearly.
Okay, these are possible changes. It doesn't feel like exactly
Just
what
saying.
you need to do for Mega Mewtwo X, but fine. Now, Mega Mewtwo Y, on the other hand, special attack decreased, attack speed decreased, HP decreased, and then recover cooldown increase in effect on the user weakened. These all make so much sense.
Too much sense. And also go completely against what Unite has done up to this point and against their beliefs. Completely. It completely contradicts how they normally balance things. That doesn't make it not real, but it means that I refuse to believe this is real until it happens. If it happens and this is how it is, so be it. I don't believe it for a second.
And they are all exactly what we want and need. And I'm hoping that we get something like this. I just don't know. As far as special...
Also, I'm kind of hoping we don't get something like this, because, like, the Absol buff, the Mime buff, the more I think about them, the worse I feel about it. Also, I really don't want the Chandelure buff. That's the worst. Like, that's actually cancer. And again, it also reads as somebody who plays Chandelure and plays like long range squishies, who doesn't like Goodra because like Goodra is anti-mage pretty effectively. It's like the one character they can't 1v1 and can actually mess with their spacing, which they desperately need or they'll die. Right? And like if they get hit by one power whip, they either have to eject button or they die. Right? So like, gee, I wonder why Noms doesn't like Goodra. It's because mages don't like Goodra. But like melees, they don't give a shit. So like this very much reads like a mage player who's sick of Inteleon killing them instantly with ult, who's sick of Goodra pulling them out of position and pulling them into the fight and they die, who's sick of, like who knows everyone hates these, like they know these are unbalanced, and plays a mage or plays mage-like characters, and they like play Chandelure now and then and would really like to be able to ult more often, or some like random wish fulfillment buff like that.
That's kind of whatever to me.
Because like at the moment, Chandelure is already one of the better moves. Overheat does an absolutely absurd amount of damage. Having an AoE huge range blind on an ult that also does like 4,000 is outrageous and ridiculous. Especially since you can eject button in it as well. And basically, if you're playing a melee, it just instantly kills you. Because you have no idea where they walked to. Like, that's ridiculous. And buffing that is absolutely ridiculous. That doesn't make it something that the devs wouldn't do. It just reads as something that one specific person who plays the game one specific way really wants the game to be changed with.
Of its autos and stuff like that. Like, sure, decreased special attack. I'm not sure how much that matters. Attack speed needs to have a complete
meh
rework on this Pokemon. HP
I believe
decrease. I kind of like this because
I think it'd be fine. I think the normal version having slightly less HP, so it does get one shot by a lot of speedsters, would be fine. Bring it, like with how much damage it does, bring it in line with like Decidueye. Bring it in line with like Inteleon, who honestly also needs an HP decrease. And you like bring it in line with a lot of these long range squishies, like between like recover and some of the and just his general stats, like Mewtwo Y could really stand to be slightly more squishy. It doesn't really need too much because again, if you run a damage build, he will just die. But
counterable, and then recover.
Why not make him die with slightly less resources? That's kind of the point of being a squishy. When he megas, I also feel like he shouldn't get HP. Maybe give him some defense and special defense, but I don't know if he needs HP. That's weird. He basically heals by mega evolving. That's weird.
Recover needs to get absolutely gutted on Mewtwo Y because it just lets you walk into every single fight with a mega.
Yeah, its cooldown is way too short. It's way too short, and it gives you too much gauge. Like, without question. I don't know how long the cooldown is on it, but it is too short.
Ice Beam, damage dealt to opposing Pokemon decreased.
I use Teleport,
No.
in case you were wondering.
Lapras Express, cooldown increased.
Which I could also see getting a nerf. I'm not sure how, but I could also see it getting a nerf. If I had to guess, probably the damage buff. I think it giving you less of a damage buff would probably be the main nerf to it. Because it having that much mobility is kind of the point. Also, I could see you only getting one teleport unless you Mega. And when you Mega, you get 2 teleports. That would be really cool. Honestly, that actually would be really cool.
Damage dealt to opposing Pokemon decreased. Like, I don't know, man.
Like, if Mewtwo X's teleport was, like, reasonable, it was, like, maybe half the range, 60% of the range, and then when it Mega'd, you get the full one, that would be really cool. Mega Mewtwo Y getting the second one when you get Mega, that would be really cool. Make the Megas more impactful.
I don't know. Fine. Is Ice Beam's damage too much of a problem? I don't know. Gudra, Dragon Pulse.
Again, reads like somebody who had a bad experience with Ice Beam killing them, and now they want it nerfed.
Effects on the user weakened. Why? Why? We finally got Gudra to a good place. This is why.
I'd see. Do you see what I mean? It's the mage players, man. They don't like Gudra because it's like the one thing that can actually deal with them without just being utterly broken. It's actually balanced around being able to deal with mages.
These patch notes, these fake patch notes. You're seeing me sit here. I'm getting mad at what I believe and assume are clearly fake patch notes, but they're actually, like, the idea behind them. Some of them are just upsetting me. They're like,
well, I'm telling you, it looks like somebody who just plays the game a certain way and doesn't like it.
Why? Why mess with Gudra in this way? Unite move right is ring.
It's weird that they would just revert a buff like this. It's random.
Decrease. Didn't we just get a decrease?
And it's very petty.
A while back? I don't know. Chandelure, Unite move, Ignite Midnight, cooldown decrease. That would actually be somewhat of a reasonable buff to that Pokemon.
Disagree.
Doing just fine, but its Unite move doesn't feel as impactful maybe as it could be.
I disagree.
Yeah, that would be fine. I don't know. I don't know if we'd even see that, but that would be.
I disagree.
Fine. And you'll notice that we don't have any mention of the Sableye buffs that could be coming to the game, which also makes me go
suspicious.
I'm not so sure about this. And then
suspicious.
Finally, we have this full heal.
Full heal effects on users increased. Again, very strange that they would just revert a buff, or a nerf in this case. They would just revert a nerf on this item? That's very strange. They don't do that very often. It would make sense with the meta that we're in, but it feels like they want to mess with the meta and not the item. Because the item having 2 seconds of anti-stun is pretty good and pretty broken in a balanced meta. But we're not in a balanced meta right now. Goal Getter cooldown decreased, reasonable. Sure. That also fits in with the Unite 2 that might be coming out, where we have a mode that's only about scoring. Be pretty cool. Slick Spoon effects decreased, reasonable. It was stupid. You're like you could honestly gut it, and it would still be one of the better items on special attackers. It's like you could gut it, maybe half it, and it would still probably be one of the better items for most special attackers. And it's wild because people were outcrying that, like Rapid Scarf was like, oh, it's so broken. Well, yeah, but the problem is it's niche. Slick Spoon is good on nearly every Pokemon that uses special damage. Like, it's useful on Slowbro. The fuck? Right, like, that's when you know, like, this is broken.
Goal Getter and Slick Spoon.
I don't play special attackers, so I couldn't tell you the actual numbers that it should be nerfed. But based on the power spike they got when it was increased, I would say somewhere between half and 75%. As in, like, of what it used to be. Like, nerf it to 75% of what it was. So, like, between half and 75%.
Slick Spoon also, I don't know, man. I definitely think they need to nerf that item. I don't know.
I don't think they will.
Goal Getter, cool.
They, just for the record, they never touch held items. Never. It took them, like, over a year to buff Leftovers, the equivocable worst item in the game at the time. And it took them a year to rework it. XP Share had a bug for the same length of time, over a year, before they finally fixed it. Over a year for a bug fix on one of the most useful items in the game. It went from one of the worst items to one of the best in one bug fix. That's how big of a bug it was, how important it was, and how little they care about held items. They do not care. Like, Rapid Scarf is probably never getting a nerf. It doesn't really need one, but you know, like you could see them like taking off a little bit, like just a little bit of the attack speed, like the tiniest little bit. But even then, you know, like if they nerf it in any noticeable amount, it'll just make the item worthless. Because there's already so few playstyles that can actually use it effectively. And case in point, all of the Pokemon that use it, you know, like are ADCs in like the bottom tiers, as opposed to Slick Spoon, which is used by all the mages in the toppest of tiers. And they're still never gonna nerf it. It is going to take a while. And I bet it ain't gonna be this patch.
Increased full heal effects on user increased. Again, this just feels like
wish fulfillment, general community outcry of, hey, full heal I'd really like it to be better because there's a lot of stun and the devs don't feel that way. Goal getter, I'd really like this item to not be useless on my, you know, like meme troll score builds. You know, like I really like Crustle and I'd like it to be good. I really like Talon, I'd like it to be good. I really like Sableye. Even though Sableye is getting nerfed or buffed or something again. It's just like, oh, you know, it's like, I'd like this to be here. And it's just not. And everyone knows that Slick Spoon is like the held item.
What so many members of the community want.
Because like if I made this, I would add like I would leave Goal Getter because I don't really care and I don't feel like it would really do anything to change it. I also wouldn't change Full Heal because that feels fake. And I would change Slick Spoon and Focus Sash. It's like effects on user decreased.
And then some of these buffs and nerfs are interesting. And then maybe not exactly what we're going to get. The other thing that I think is interesting about it, as I look through this list, outside of maybe Chandelure's Unite move, maybe Absol, I feel like every time I see patch notes for Pokemon Unite, there's always one or two oddballs, like one or two things that you did not expect to be in there. And I would say most everything on this list is expected. For instance,
yeah. If I had to guess on a Pokemon that they would just randomly buff out of nowhere, because they usually do it in preparation for future metas and things like that, future builds, future levels. Gosh, if I picked a character that would get a random buff, it would probably be a support. I think. I think like there'd be just like a random, oh, Clefable does more damage with Dazzling Kiss now or something. You know, like we're kind of due for like a Blissey change. I wouldn't be surprised if we got, you know, like, oh, Blissey Helping Hand has been nerfed because Mewtwo Y is too strong, or Blissey Safeguard has now been made even worse, or something. And Blissey Passive now goes off more often. I could see that. Random.
We know Crustle needed buffs, but when Crustle got buffs and Brave Bird for Talon got a damage increase, I think we were all like, oh, I didn't even know they were thinking about things like that right now. So to me, when I see these patch notes, part of my
do I have? No, I don't. All right.
My brain also
Let me pull up Unite DB then.
I don't really know if there's exactly enough weird stuff in here. As
what other Pokemon do we have that would be like, what's a random buff that they could give?
Things that most everybody wants. You see the Mewtwo's getting gutted. I don't know. Please tell me what you think in the comments. And look, there is a reality where all of this or most of this is true, even if these notes are fake. Like most of this could be true. Like let's look through this really quick right here before we go. Alola Ninetales, I don't think they need to touch it. Inteleon, Liquidation does need to be changed probably. Zarina needs to be buffed. Mime needs to be
let me just go ahead and follow up his opinions with my opinions. But first, I want to go over like Unite DB and what Pokemon they might just randomly change for no reason. I could see a Machamp change for no reason. I could see a Trev change for no reason. We're kind of in the realm of like Trev's really strong, and we haven't done anything about that. So I could see that happening. I could see a random Scyther change in either direction, honestly. Urshifu needs to be touched. I could imagine Zorak or Dodrio just getting a nerf out of nowhere, even though they're kind of being they finally started being pounded into the dirt by the meta like the rest of the speedsters and attackers. Like they're finally kind of getting caught up and getting just obliterated. Eldegoss is a random Pokemon that they just don't change, even every time they do, it's a buff, even though it really doesn't need or deserve it. Duraludon, the random strong Pokemon that they could just be changing for no reason. Dragapult, maybe. Like I feel like they don't even know where to begin with that character, and I agree. Or maybe it's just me projecting, because I feel like I have no idea what you would do with Dragapult to not just throttle it. Like, any nerf you give to it destroys it. Any buff you give to it, outside of buffing Dreepy or Dracloak, is a nightmare. Right? Like, you wouldn't be able to touch the damage on any of his moves without it making him broken. You wouldn't be able to touch the damage on his basic attacks without making him broken. If I had to pick a change that I just desperately want for Dragapult, it would be that I want Dreepy and Dracloak to have higher attack speed. Their attack speed is pathetic. It is pathetic. Right? Like they have absolutely zero jungle clear and they have zero lane clear. Like they're good nowhere. Like Dragapult is physically not a character until level 9 and it's absurd. It's absurd that this character is completely worthless. Like, even Scorbunny has Ember for something resembling secure. Agility's animation, or whatever it's called. Like, his little dash move, quick attack, I think. Like, his dash move, it takes forever to finish, and you can't animation cancel it at all. To get like the attack speed, and the attack speed it gives you is worthless and doesn't last any amount of time. It doesn't even last half as long as the cooldown, right? Like he's awful. It's a terrible character up until level 9, and then it suddenly becomes like a B tier or above. Well, no, not above, but it suddenly goes from like an F to a B. And like that's basically like Gardevoir level stupidity that they got rid of on those characters. They got rid of Gardevoir level stupidity on Gardevoir specifically. They got rid of it on Mamo specifically. The only character they even finally got rid of it on Zera. The only character they didn't get rid of it on is T-Tar, because that's his whole point. That's the whole point of his character arc. Except T-Tar is unbelievably stupid when it comes to late game, and Dragapult is really good on one-on-one. Really good at 1v1s, which never happens late game. Like, even if you manage to Dragon Dance around an entire team, you're still only hitting one character with the full damage. And the AoE damage is pathetic. And if you're running Phantom Force, you're stuck in the back line mashing on whoever's the front line, which is the defender, which is the one character you don't want to be hitting with the AoE. Right? Like, Dragapult, yeah, he becomes like a B tier, and only a B tier, because he's a 1v1 specialist. Late game, when there are no 1v1s. And his weakness is the current meta, stun and tankiness. It's because if you can survive his Dragon Dance, you're fucked. And if you can outlast his Phantom Force, he's fucked. So most of the Metamon you're fucked against. And he's trash up until level 9. And it's very strange that he also has the worst early game of all the ADCs. Even worse than Kubfu. And that's sad. That's sad. That's a sad time, my dude. The little Astonish is worthless. What other character could just be a random change? Cram? We're due for a Cram change. What change? Who knows? Doesn't matter really either. Charizard, their best boy. I wouldn't be surprised if they just randomly gave a buff again. Again, Blissey, I feel like could stand to receive it. Any of the first four, Absol, Aegislash, Azumarill, Blastoise, I could see it. You know, like Aegislash is due for another buff to make him broken again. For some reason. Azumarill, they like to tweak with him a lot. So, maybe. I'm sure like a couple of the devs just really like Azumarill. I'd like to play, probably. Absol, again, that's already on this list, supposedly. And Blastoise, we're due for another, let's make another defender broken, because they're not as broken as the others right now. That happens all the time. That happens all the time. It happened to Trevenant, it happened to Blastoise, it happened to Slowbro. Like, they do it all the freaking time, man. Completely reasonable for Blastoise to just be on here for no reason. Anyway, let's counter his opinions with mine.
Buffed. Absol needs to be buffed. Pikachu could probably use a different buff. Leaf, I don't think they need to touch it.
I disagree.
Really quick right here before we go. Alolan Ninetales, I don't think they need to touch it.
I disagree. I think the Alolan Ninetales Blizzard buff made it an incredibly boring character, and it made it incredibly good for no effort or risk whatsoever. And it gave it the ability to just stun lock everything to death even more than it already could, and its cooldown is so low that a melee character without a dash can legitimately be infinite cycled by Blizzard just consistently going against a wall. Right? Like, if you get hit against a wall with Blizzard against Alolan Ninetales, you cannot catch it. And I think that's dumb. Like, you shouldn't have to be a speedster to kill a Ninetales. That's stupid. And even if you dive onto it, Blizzard pushes you away into Avalanche. And another nerf, I don't think you should be able to cast Blizzard first and then do Avalanche. Because that means that you cast Blizzard, you get the shove, then you put Avalanche down, then you get the stun, and then you walk away while they're stunned for upwards of a second. That's really stupid, and it made sense when Blizzard was on like a huge cooldown. I think it was like 8 seconds or something. That's really stupid when Blizzard is on like a 4-second cooldown. Because it means now you can cast a Blizzard first in panic and then mash your other move, and it will still do the combo in open air. That's stupid. If you panic Blizzard, you should not get the buff. You should have to Avalanche first, and then the enemy can just sidestep it. Like, that should be the game that you're playing. Not just you press buttons always forever for free with no punishment. That's stupid. Especially considering how much shield and damage their ult gives. You can literally Blizzard, Avalanche, and then ult, all of which is true. That's stupid. It's stupid. You shouldn't be able to do that. You should have to Avalanche first. And otherwise, it's up to the opponent to avoid walls specifically. And then Avalanche can just enclose like chokeholds, and then that makes Blizzard really good. You know, like when you're going into Ray Pit or something, it's like, oh, the melee can't dive you very easy, because, you know, like if you put an Avalanche down behind him, everywhere is a wall, and they can't dodge Blizzard now. That makes sense. You being able to just mash Blizzard when you see the Scizor coming before they even use their Bullet Punch and still get the stun is absurd. Also, personal feeling, I feel like the splash zone of Blizzard should be doing all of the damage, and the shove should do like nothing. Just saying.
Inteleon, Liquidation does need to be changed.
I'm not a mage player though, so that one I feel like might be skewed. That one might be not quite in agreement.
Probably. Zarina needs to be buffed.
I wasn't paying attention. What?
Like, let's look through this really quick right here before we go. Alolan Ninetales, I don't think they need to touch it.
Disagree. Boring and too much damage for free.
Inteleon, Liquidation does need to be changed.
I think that boosted attacks also need a nerf.
Probably. Zarina needs to be buffed.
I agree with that statement in general, and I like this buff.
Mime needs to be buffed.
Disagree.
Absol needs to be buffed.
Disagree. Well, I don't disagree with it, but I don't know how. This is not how. Unite move, that's fine. Pursuit, I disagree.
Pikachu could probably use a different buff.
I agree.
Leafeon, I really wouldn't touch too much.
If this isn't too much of a nerf, I think it's fine.
Both Mewtwo's need to be nerfed.
In general, yes. I don't think this is how they will go about it, and also probably wouldn't do that much to Mewtwo X, honestly.
Lapras could use some slight nerfs.
I would say more than slight, and also the ult needs to be far more gimped than this.
I wouldn't touch Goodra.
I agree. Well, no, that's not true. I would buff Muddy Water, but that's slightly biased.
I think you really need to touch Chandelure.
But it is dumb that Muddy Water is infinitely worse than Dragon Pulse. That's dumb.
Lapras could use some slight nerfs. I wouldn't touch Goodra. I don't think you really need to touch Chandelure.
I disagree. I think it needs a slight nerf.
And these items, full heal, maybe, but now you're just making it so every Pokemon needs full heal.
Which is also, like, really dumb, and why I really don't want full heal. I think it needed a nerf in the first place, and the meta needed a change, and I still feel that way. But, you know, they're also clearly not in the mood to change the meta, so, you know, like, do the ends justify the means? I don't know. I disagree. I don't want full heal to just be on every character. But it is trash right now because of how many stuns there are.
Which some of them really do. Goal Getter, if they want that, and then...
Does it hurt anything? Probably not. Does it help anything? Probably not. Like, I guess with Ray Shield it would suck to have Goal Getter, but, you know, like, the cooldown decrease doesn't do anything with that. You know, like, that doesn't change it at all. It just changes how long before Ray that they have to use it. Which is arguably a bad thing. Because you want them to use it as close to Ray as possible. And so I would say that the cooldown decrease might even be a good thing, because they'll feel more confident with it than it is.
And Slick Spoon needs it, but I just doubt it. That's just
not much. Like, it really doesn't change it much in either way. Like, it's a good buff regardless, but it also will trip up a lot of people and make them really dependent on it, and it's still a bad item, so if they're dependent on it, they're doomed. Slick Spoon needs the nerf, straight up.
just kind of what I see from looking at Spoon. Needs it, but I just doubt it. That's just kind of what I
highly doubt it. They do not nerf held items ever.
I see.
I like, arguably they buff battle items more than they buffed held items, like full heal and Goal Getter. Even those arguably get more changes. We've gotten quite a few changes in the past. X attack has been buffed like twice, maybe 3 times, I don't remember. X speed has been buffed like 3 times. Slow Smoke has had its fair share of changes, buff, nerf. Full heal's gotten a buff, gotten a nerf. Shedinjidal got a buff in the PTS, and then a nerf in the PTS, and now it is where it is here. What else? Goal Getter has gotten, I think, 2 cooldown decreases? Maybe just 1. I think it's 2. Eject Button has gotten a cooldown increase. Potion has gotten a heal increase, and I think a cooldown decrease, but I might be making that cooldown thing up. Am I missing something? Fluffy Tail. Fluffy Tail. Fluffy Tail ever get changed? I think they left it in its default form. I don't think it ever got changed. I think we've been wanting a change for the longest time, but I don't think we ever got one. Sorry, I was looking at the Discord. What's up? Oh, right. Yeah, a bunch of the held items got... Oh, yeah, I have Unite DB up. I can just check that real quick. Items. Battle items, held items. Eject Button, Fluffy Tail, Full Heal, Goal Getter, Potion, Slow Smoke, X Speed, X Attack, Shedinjidal. I didn't miss any. And yeah, and in terms of what held item buffs we've gotten, if I remember rightly, we got the infamous Buddy Barrier nerf, thank God. We got the Score Shield nerf, thank God. Technically a rework. Weakness Policy never got changed. Wise Glasses never got changed. Special attacks, none of the stacking items ever got changed. Slick Spoon is still new. Shell Bell, if it got a change, I don't remember. Scope Lens has never been changed, surprisingly. Rusted Sword is not an item. Rocky Helmet has never been buffed, despite how bad it is. Rescue Hood has never been changed. Razor Claw has never been changed, despite how good it is. Muscle Band has never been changed, despite how unbelievably good it is. Leftovers has never been changed, despite how bad it is. No, that's not true. Leftovers, XP Share, and Assault Vest all got a slight change to their activation, where they activate, I believe, slightly faster out of combat. Not XP Share. What am I talking about? Assault Vest, Leftovers, and Floatstone. That's the one. I believe they got a slight buff to how fast they activate out of combat, but not to their actual stats or what they do. So Leftovers is still trash. Assault Vest is still trash until they enable Draft, and Floatstone is pretty good now, actually. It was actually kind of enough of a buff for Floatstone. Focus Bash has never been... Focus Band has never been nerfed, despite how good it is. XP Share got a bug fix once. Energy Amp has never been changed. Drain Crown has never been buffed, despite how bad it is, but it's also fairly new. Choice Specs has never been changed, to my knowledge. None of the stacking items have been changed. And Aos Cookie has never been changed, because none of the stacking items have been changed. So, like, the number of changes that we've gotten on the held item side is maybe, like, 1, 2, 3... Technically, I'm going to lump all 3 of the activation timers into one change. But you could also argue that there's 2 more. 3, 4, 5 with a bug fix, and 6. And so you could argue it's between 6 and 8 with held items. And we have gotten like 3, 6, 9, with just 3 items on this list. The battle items have already gotten more buffs than held items as a whole, even when including all of the timers as separate. And so we've gotten like 3 goal getters. It might have been 2. I'll lowball it. Screw it. 2 goal getters, 3 X speeds, 2 X attacks. And so we're already at 7. 2 slow smokes, we are now at 8, 9, and we're already more than all of the held items combined. Plus a potion buff, plus the PTS I won't count for Shedinja at all, plus the full heal nerf, and I can't remember if it got a buff, but I'm pretty sure it did. Plus the eject button, I think 1 nerf, it might have been 2. I think 2 nerfs, it might have been 1. And that's like 12 changes to like 9 battle items, as opposed to 6 to 8 changes for like 24 held items. They do not change held items ever. And reminder, most of these held items have been in the game since the beginning. And we have only had one battle item added. They've had plenty of time to edit any of these held items, and they don't, ever. Weakness policy has also just been left to dry. Left out to dry. Left to die.
Looking at these, and I've seen so many people talk about them that I just wanted to
Left
throw
4 Dead
my
2.
2 cents out there for these patch notes. Let me know what you think in the comments, even if these are fake.
Give it a
what
like.
do you think actually makes it to the do you think these are fake or true? You can
They
answer
feel
with
like
fake or true. I would just love to hear what you think. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. I love you very much, and I'll see you all soon with hopefully some real patch notes.
The comment I will leave on this is that I feel like this reads to me like a mage player who wants general balance and a couple of petty nerfs. And a couple of petty changes. A lot of the changes made sense, but either contradicted or flat out go against both how Unite updates things and how the business side thinks they make money and do make money, as well as like brand image and like general game image. Like, they would not nerf the Mewtwo's in this way. They don't nerf characters like this in general. They don't just, like, undo buffs that they did, like, several months ago unless it is an emergency nerf. Like, all of these read to me like one person made these. They read to me like a single person made this and just really wanted these to happen specifically. Think like the original leak for like Blaziken. Like, here's some Pokemon I want in a game. What do you think? And like it had like Blastoise and I can't remember the characters that were on it that got in immediately. But it had like Blastoise and Decidueye or whatever. It's like, oh, maybe it's real. This reads to me as like, here's what I want the patch notes to be, and they're being pawned off as real patch notes. It could happen. They aren't unreasonable. I don't believe it. I don't believe it for a second. Alright, I need to go the heck to bed. It's been a while. But I hope you guys enjoyed. I'll catch you guys in the next stream. Bye! Peace!